The sun hung heavy over the plains of Ndlovu village, turning the cracked earth into mirrors of heat. Dust rose with every faint breeze, only to fall again in tired defeat. For 3 long years, the land had not tasted rain. Trees stood like skeletons. The rivers had forgotten how to sing. And in the middle of this forgotten place lived a girl the village tried to forget, Amelie. She was no more than 15, her frame thin, her eyes hollow yet bright with a strange fire. The fire of someone who had learned to survive when no one wanted her to. Her name meant the beautiful one, but beauty meant little in a place where kindness had dried up like the soil. Amelie had lost her parents when she was 7, a sickness that swept through their hut and left only silence behind. The morning after they were buried, her mother's relatives came. They whispered among themselves that the ancestors had taken the family as punishment. Someone claimed her mother had once spoken against the chief's decision to sacrifice a goat to the spirits. Others said her father had mocked the rain gods. No one really knew. But rumor is a hungry thing. It feeds until only bones of truth remain. And so, Amelie became the cursed child. Her mother's brother took her in at first, but his wife treated Amelie worse than the goats. Each morning, before the sun rose, she was sent to fetch water from a far well, a well that was nearly dry. The bucket felt heavier each day, and sometimes she spilled more than she carried back. When that happened, she was beaten. When she grew older, she was passed from house to house, doing chores for scraps of food, washing clothes for families who wouldn't even say her name. The village children mocked her as she passed, whispering that her shadow brought drought. Amelie never answered them. She had learned early that silence hurt less than words. At night, she would sit outside her small mud hut, the one place she could call her own, and stare at the stars. Her body ached from work, her stomach often empty, but her eyes searched the sky as if it held the answers to her life. She whispered to herself, "Maybe my parents live among those stars. Maybe they can see me." But the heavens stayed quiet. As the seasons passed, the drought deepened. The wells dried completely. Goats died in the fields. Mothers buried infants whose tiny lips never learned to smile. The people grew angry at the land, at the gods, and at one another. And when a people can no longer blame the sky, they blame each other. Whenever someone's harvest failed, they said, "It is because the cursed girl walks our paths." Whenever a child fell sick, they muttered, "The orphan's shadow touched him." One morning, as Amelie tried to buy a handful of maize with the few cowries she'd earned, the vendor spat on the ground. "Go away, cursed one," she said sharply. "Your bad luck will scare my customers." Amelie looked down and walked away, clutching her coins tightly, even though she knew no one else would sell to her. She wandered to the edge of the village, where the land dipped into a dry stream bed. There, she sat and wept quietly, her tears falling into the cracked soil that refused to drink them. Her heart ached with questions she had no answers for. Why did the heavens forget her? Why did kindness cost so much? That night, as the moon rose like a pale witness, Amelie sat outside again. The wind was dry, and the crickets were silent. She looked up at the sky and whispered, almost too softly for even the stars to hear, "Do you see me? Or am I too small for your eyes?" But the sky, vast and endless, gave her only silence. Still, she kept looking, because even when a heart is shattered, it searches for light. And in that moment, something stirred deep within her, a longing so powerful it frightened her. She didn't know it yet, but the same heavens she questioned were listening, waiting. The story of Amelie, the girl the village forgot, was only beginning. The morning sun rose like fire over Ndlovu village, spreading its heat before the world was even ready to wake. Dust danced in the wind like ghosts, and every breath felt dry enough to cut. Inside a small, crumbling hut, Amelie sat on the floor, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her stomach twisted with hunger. She had not eaten since the previous morning, only a sip of bitter water and a few grains of maize she had found on the ground. Her aunt's sharp voice cut through the silence. "Amelie, get up, lazy girl. Go fetch wood before the sun burns your skin." Amelie obeyed, though her legs trembled with weakness. She stepped outside, squinting against the light. The world around her faded into dull shades of yellow and brown. The air smelled of dust and despair. By midday, she returned with a small bundle of dry sticks. Her aunt stood by the cooking pot, stirring something that smelled of beans. Amelie's stomach growled loud enough for both of them to hear. She hesitated before asking, softly, "Annie, may I have a little food? Just a spoonful." Her aunt turned sharply. "Food? For what? You bring no blessings to this house, only bad luck." The woman snatched a piece of flat bread cooling on the mat. Amelie's eyes followed it hungrily. But when her aunt turned her back for a moment, Amelie's trembling hands reached out and tore off a small piece. Just enough to taste. Just enough to survive. But her aunt saw. In an instant, rage filled the woman's face. She struck Amelie across the cheek, the sound echoing through the hut like thunder. "Thief!" she shouted. "You dare steal from me after all I've done for you." Amelie stumbled back, tears stinging her eyes. The bread fell to the floor. "I was hungry," she whispered. But her words only brought more blows. When it was over, Amelie ran. She didn't know where her feet were taking her, only that she had to get away. Away from the pain, the hate, the endless emptiness. She ran past the fields of dead maize, past the old baobab tree, past the dry stream where children once played. The ground burned her bare feet, but she didn't stop until she reached the hill of stones outside the village, a place the elders said was sacred, where ancestors once prayed for rain. Amelie fell to her knees, gasping for breath. The world around her shimmered in the heat. The sky stretched endless and blue, cruelly beautiful. And something inside her broke. All the years of hunger, all the whispers of curse, all the loneliness that filled her like sand, they rose up from her chest in a scream that tore through the silence. "If the heavens have no mercy for me," she cried, her voice shaking the air, "then may they never have mercy again. Do you hear me? Never again." Her words echoed across the barren land, swallowed by the wind. For a moment, everything was still. Even the air stopped moving. Amelie fell forward, her face pressed against the dirt, tears soaking the ground. She stayed there until the sun began to set, her voice gone, her heart empty. Behind her, an old man had been walking, the village elder, known for his quiet wisdom. He had come to the hill to pray for rain, but what he witnessed froze his blood. He watched the orphan girl curse the sky, and though she could not see him, he whispered in fear, "The ancestors will not take such words lightly." That evening, he went to the chief's hut and told him what he saw, but the chief only laughed. "A starving girl's cries cannot reach the gods. We have bigger problems than her madness." The villagers agreed. To them, Amelie's outburst was just the noise of a desperate child, the kind of noise they had long learned to ignore. But that night, as the village slept, the sky began to change. Far above the plains, a single cloud drifted across the stars. Then another, and another. The wind stirred gently, carrying a scent that no one had known in years, the scent of rain. A faint rumble of thunder rolled in the distance, soft, uncertain, as if the heavens were waking from a deep sleep. The villagers stirred, some stepping outside in disbelief. They looked up and saw flashes of light far away, beyond the horizon. A few smiled, others whispered, uneasy. But Amelie, lying on her mat with swollen eyes and a bruised face, felt her heart pound. She could hear the thunder, faint but real. Her curse had been heard. A chill spread through her, not joy, but fear. The kind of fear that comes when you realize your pain might have power. She whispered into the darkness, trembling. "What have I done?" Outside, the thunder rolled again, louder this time, closer. And for the first time in years, the sky did not feel silent. It felt alive. The next morning began like every other in Dlovo village, dry, cracked, and hopeless. The sun rose slowly, spilling its golden fire over the land that had long forgotten what it meant to be alive. Amelie woke to the sound of silence. Not peace, but the kind that presses against the skin like a warning. Her head still ached from her aunt's blows, and her throat burned with thirst. She sat up weakly, glancing at the sky through the doorway of her hut. Then she froze. Far in the distance, clouds, thick, gray, and heavy, were gathering. For 3 long years, the sky had been nothing but empty blue. But now, as if answering some secret call, the heavens began to darken. A soft wind stirred the dust, twisting it into small spirals that danced like spirits. Emily stepped outside. The villagers were already gathering, pointing upward, their faces a mixture of disbelief and joy. Children shouted, "The rain is coming." Women raised their hands to the sky and cried out prayers of thanks. For the first time in years, hope returned to Ndlovu. It happened. A single drop of rain, cool and clean, fell onto Emily's arm. She gasped, staring at it as it rolled down her skin, leaving a trail through the dust. Another drop followed, and another. Within moments, rain began to pour, not over the village, but only above her small hut. The villagers cheered at first, running toward her home, but as they reached its edge, they stopped in confusion. The rain fell in a perfect circle, a shimmering curtain of silver, ending just beyond Emily's yard. Outside that circle, the earth remained dry. Inside it, the ground drank greedily. The villagers watched in silence as puddles formed around Emily's hut, the mud softening, grass beginning to sprout almost instantly. But the boundary was sharp, step outside, and the air was bone dry again. The chief frowned deeply. "What is this?" he muttered. "Why does the sky choose her?" Emily looked up, letting the rain soak her face. For a moment, all she felt was relief. The coolness on her skin felt like forgiveness, like love she hadn't known in years. She whispered to herself, "The heavens, they heard me." But around her, the murmurs grew darker. "This is no blessing," said one woman. "It's her curse. The orphan's magic has stolen our rain," another spat. "She's angered the ancestors, and now they mock us." Fear spread faster than fire. By midday, half the village stood outside Emily's hut, their faces twisted with confusion and suspicion. The chief approached, holding his staff. "Emily," he said, his voice cold, "what have you done? What words did you speak to the sky?" Emily hesitated. "I only cried out," she said softly. "I was angry, hungry. I asked why the heavens had forgotten me." A hush fell over the crowd. Then someone shouted, "She cursed the sky." That's what she did. Emily's heart pounded. "No, I didn't mean." But no one listened. They turned to the elder who had witnessed her cry the day before. The old man stepped forward slowly, his face heavy with regret. "It is true," he said. "I saw her on the hill. I heard her curse the heavens in her pain." The people gasped. Some stepped back. Others began to whisper prayers under their breath. The chief's voice hardened. "You have brought danger upon us all. The gods mock us with this rain that blesses only your home. You must be punished, Emily." Tears filled her eyes. Punished? For rain? For finally being seen? But her words only deepened their fear. By nightfall, the decision was made. Emily would be cast out until the ancestors were appeased. She spent that night sitting in the doorway of her hut, the rain still falling gently around her. Her little yard glowed green with life, the only patch of color in a sea of dead earth. The smell of wet soil filled the air. She wanted to be grateful, to believe it was mercy, but she couldn't shake the sound of the villagers' voices, their hatred echoing in her mind. When dawn came, she heard the drums. The chief's men were coming. Emily stepped outside, her heart heavy. The villagers stood in a circle around her hut, the same people who had once thrown stones at her, now watching as if she were a spirit in flesh. The chief lifted his staff. "Leave this place. Take your curse with you." Emily shook her head, crying, "Please, I didn't ask for this." The crowd murmured. Someone threw a stone. It landed in the mud at her feet, splashing her legs. Another stone followed. Emily backed away, her breath breaking into sobs. The rain seemed to follow her footsteps as she moved toward the fields. Then something impossible happened. As she walked away from the village, the rain moved with her, a shimmering veil that followed her like a shadow. The villagers gasped and stepped back, terrified. Wherever she went, The ground beneath her feet bloomed green. But beyond a few steps, dryness, dust, and despair. The people screamed. Some fell to their knees. Others shouted for her to go farther. Amelie ran, her tears mixing with the rain that belonged only to her. She didn't stop until she reached the edge of the hills, where the earth dropped into emptiness. There, she collapsed to her knees, shaking. Above her, the rain continued to fall softly, only on her, as if the heavens were marking her, following her, refusing to let go. Amelie buried her face in her hands and wept. The heavens had answered her, but not with mercy. Amelie wandered far from Dlouvu, her bare feet sinking in a mud that only existed beneath her. The rest of the land, stretching endlessly around her, was still dry, gray, and lifeless. The rain followed her like a shadow, never drifting, never widening. Wherever she went, the ground beneath her became green, flowers sprouting like small miracles before wilting again when she passed. She had become a moving oasis, a one-woman storm, and a living reminder of the village's curse. For days she walked, surviving on the small fruits that grew instantly under her reign. But she was alone, completely, painfully alone. The sound of the falling water, once a comfort, had become a kind of laughter, echoing her isolation. At night, she would curl under her soaked blanket, whispering to the heavens, "Why me? What do you want from me?" But there was no answer, only the rhythmic patter of the rain, falling endlessly onto her tiny world. The village without rain. Back in Dlouvu, the people waited. They thought once the orphan was gone, the rain would return to them. But days passed, then weeks. The sun scorched their fields harder than before. The chief stood in the middle of the village one morning and looked up at the empty sky. There was nothing, no clouds, no mercy. The people grew restless. Some blamed the chief. Others whispered that the gods had given the orphan their blessing, that maybe she was not cursed at all. One of the elders, old Nkulubani, spoke to the people. "The heavens have chosen her. Until we seek her forgiveness, the land will never heal." But pride is a harder drought than any weather. The chief refused to believe it. "We will survive without her," he declared. "We do not need the cursed one." Yet as the months dragged on, children grew sick, and the once green hills turned to ash. Livestock fell, rivers dried, and the sound of crying filled the air. The lonely rain. Far away, Amelie built herself a small shelter beside a dying baobab tree. The rain never stopped there. It became her roof, her song, her curse. The air around her was cool and fragrant. Her crops grew in abundance, and animals began to come. Thirsty gazelles, lost birds, and stray goats. For the first time, she felt needed, if not by people, then by the earth itself. She began to care for the creatures that entered her rain circle. She spoke to them softly as she worked, her loneliness easing with each day. Still, there were moments she would look toward the horizon, toward Ndlovu, and wonder if anyone missed her. One afternoon, while gathering herbs, she saw movement in the distance. A small figure stumbled toward her, thin, weak, and covered in dust. It was a child. Amelie ran to help, the rain trailing behind her like a loyal spirit. When she reached the boy, he was barely conscious. His lips were cracked, his eyes sunken. She pulled him into the rain, and as the drops touched his skin, he gasped, life returning to him like magic. "Please," he whispered, "my mother, she's dying. No water. Please help us." Amelie froze. He was from Dlouvu. Every part of her wanted to turn away, to let them feel what they had done to her. But when she looked into the child's eyes, she saw the same hunger, the same pain she once carried. She sighed and said softly, "Take me to her. Return to the ashes." As Amelie followed the boy, the rain followed her, sweeping across the barren plains. The trail behind her shimmered, brief, glowing patches of green that faded the moment she moved on. When the people of Ndlovu saw her approaching, they gasped. The children ran ahead shouting, "She's back! The rain girl is back!" The adults froze. Some knelt. Others hid. Amelie stepped into the village square, the rain falling gently around her. The chief emerged from his hut, his eyes wide with disbelief and shame. The once proud man now looked old, thinner, broken. "Emily," he said slowly, "you have returned." She looked at him, her face calm but unreadable. "I didn't come for you," she said softly. "I came for the dying." She moved toward the huts, and wherever she passed, the ground came alive. The people followed, whispering prayers, afraid to touch her but desperate for her reign. She found the boy's mother, frail, barely breathing, and knelt beside her. The rain fell on the woman's skin like blessing oil. Within moments, her breathing steadied. The villagers watched in stunned silence. Emily stood, turning to them. "You cast me out because you feared what you didn't understand. You thought I was cursed. But this—" She lifted her arms, letting the rain fall freely. "This was never mine to control. The heavens chose me to remind you of mercy." Her voice trembled. "You beg for rain, but you refuse to show kindness. The sky only mirrors what is in your hearts." The chief fell to his knees. "Forgive us," he whispered. "Forgive our blindness." Emily looked up at the sky, and for the first time, she smiled. "The forgiveness isn't mine to give," she said. "It's theirs." A single rumble of thunder rolled across the land. Then, suddenly, the rain spread. It burst outward from Emily's circle, racing across the fields, sweeping over huts and hills, washing over every corner of Ndlovu. The people shouted and cried as the drought finally ended. Emily stood in the center, drenched and still, the rainstorm blooming around her like a crown. The outcast no more. By nightfall, the village was alive again. Drums echoed, laughter returned, and the smell of wet soil filled every heart with relief. But when the people looked for Emily, she was gone. Only the sound of soft rain remained, falling gently over the village, not heavy, not loud, as if she had become part of it. Some say she wandered into the hills, where the rain followed her still. Others believe she became one with the clouds, the orphan who spoke to the heavens and was finally heard. And every time rain falls on Ndlova now, the elders tell the children, "Remember Emily, the girl who was cursed at the sky, and taught the world what mercy truly means." The years passed, and the village of Ndlovu transformed. What was once a land of dust and despair became a place of harvest and harmony. The people learned to share, to pray with humility, and to treat one another with gentleness, for they had seen what pride and cruelty could summon from the heavens. But among the whispers of the wind and the soft rhythm of rainfall, Emily's name lived on, not as a curse, but as a blessing. The heavens remember. Each season, when the skies grew heavy and the first drop of rain touched the earth, the villagers would gather in the square. The elders would tell the children the story of the orphan who once cursed the sky and became its chosen child. She asked why the heavens forgot her. Old Kolobani would say, and the heavens answered, not with words, but with water. The children would look upward, watching the rain fall with wonder, as if Emily herself was among the clouds, listening. Some swore they could still see her in the storms, a figure in white, walking between the flashes of lightning, her face calm, her arms open to the sky. And when the rain was especially kind, soft, warm, and endless, the people would say, "Emily is smiling." The chief's redemption. The chief, who had banished her, never forgave himself. Every drop of rain that kissed the soil reminded him of the girl he had driven away. He spent his last years tending to a small garden behind his hut, the first garden that Emily's rain had revived. He grew maize, herbs, and flowers, and every morning he poured a cup of water onto the earth in silence. No one knew what he prayed for, but those who saw him said he often looked to the clouds and whispered, "Thank you, little one." When he passed, the villagers buried him beneath the baobab at the center of the village, and the day after his burial, a strange thing happened. Rain fell again, though the season was long past. It poured for a single hour, soft and clean, washing the dust from his grave. The people took it as a sign Emily had forgiven him. A new beginning. Generations changed. Ndlovu grew prosperous. The once barren fields stretched wide and green, and the river that had been dry for decades flowed again, shimmering like glass. In time, a sanctuary was built, a small hut made of stone and thatch on the hill where Amelie had once cried to the sky. Inside, there was no idol, no altar, only a bowl of clear water that never dried up, no matter the season. Travelers came from distant lands to see it. Some said it was blessed. Others said it was cursed. But everyone who touched the water felt the same, a calmness that sank deep into their bones. They began calling it Amelie's blessing. Women who could not bear children drank from it and conceived. Crops planted near it grew twice as strong. And those who came with bitterness in their hearts often left with tears, tears that healed them. The storyteller's voice. Many years later, a little girl sat beside her grandmother as the rain whispered on the roof. "Grandmother," she asked, "is Amelie real? Did she truly speak to the sky?" The old woman smiled, her wrinkled hands weaving a basket as she replied, "My child, she was as real as this rain. She was hurt, forgotten, and cast away. But she forgave, even when the world did not deserve it. That is why the heavens listened to her." The girl listened quietly, then whispered, "I want to be like her." Her grandmother chuckled softly. "Then be kind when others are cruel. Be patient when others are proud. And when you are wronged, let your heart be rain, not fire." The child nodded. Outside, the downpour grew stronger, but the sound felt comforting, like a lullaby written by the sky itself. The eternal rain. One evening, many years after that conversation, a group of travelers camped near the hills beyond Blovu. As they settled for the night, one of them pointed toward a faint light shimmering in the distance, a soft glow moving across the plains. It looked like rain falling in a single circle miles away. The travelers watched silently as the glowing rain drifted slowly, then faded into the night. None of them spoke for a long time. Finally, one whispered, "Perhaps it's her." No one laughed. No one doubted, because in that land, everyone knew some storms never die. Night had fallen heavy upon the village of Ndlovu. The air was dry, still, and uneasy, like the world was holding its breath. The drought had returned in spirit, if not in body, creeping through the hearts of the people. Even after years of Amelie's endless reign, resentment still lived in whispers. Some villagers still spoke her name with unease, afraid of the power they could not understand. Others, too proud to admit their wrongs, avoided her small hut at the village's edge, where she lived quietly under her circle of soft, eternal rain. Amelie, now older but still fragile in frame, had learned to live between gratitude and grief. The rain that followed her had become her only friend, soft, loyal, and unyielding. Yet, sometimes, as she lay awake at night, she wondered if this rain was a gift or a chain that bound her to her pain. She often prayed beneath its gentle fall, whispering, "Let this end. Let me be free." But the rain never stopped. The fire in the dark. One night, thunder grumbled faintly in the distance. Strange, since the skies had been calm for days. Amelie stepped outside, lifting her face to the cool drops that always surrounded her. Then she saw it, a flash of orange light dancing across the horizon. Another flash, then another. Fire. The dry grass beyond the village had caught flame, and the wind carried it fast. Sparks leapt like angry spirits, rushing toward the cluster of huts. Amelie gasped. The smell of smoke filled the air. The people were shouting now, women crying, men running with buckets, children screaming. The flames climbed higher, devouring the thatch roofs, turning the night sky into a storm of red and black. The plea. Within minutes, half the village was burning. The people tried to fight it, but the drought had left them powerless. Their wells were dry, their buckets empty. And then, as if guided by fate, someone shouted her name. "Find Amelie. She has the rain." A desperate crowd gathered, faces lit by firelight, eyes wild with fear and regret. They ran to her hut, their footsteps splashing into her circle of wet earth. Amelie stood at her doorway, silent. The chief, older now, gray-haired and weary, fell to his knees before her. "Emily," he pleaded, "forgive us. Bring the rain. Save us." Behind him, mothers clutched their children, their faces streaked with tears and ash. Even those who once mocked her now bowed low, crying her name. Emily's heart trembled. She looked at their faces, the same faces that once turned away from her when she was starving, the same hands that threw stones at her hut. Her voice broke as she whispered, "You cast me out. You burned my home. You called me cursed." The people lowered their heads in shame. The test. The fire was spreading fast now, licking at the outer walls of her circle of rain. Sparks hissed as they met the wet soil, but refused to die. The smoke rose high into the heavens, blackening the moon. Emily's hands shook. She looked at the sky, her heart heavy with the weight of every wound she had ever carried. She could have turned away. She could have let the flames consume the village that never showed her mercy. But deep within her, the elder's words echoed. "The rain will not stop until your heart is healed, until you forgive the sky and those who wronged you." Emily fell to her knees in the mud, tears mixing with the rain. Her voice cracked as she looked upward. "I forgive them, even if they never forgive me. Let this rain fall for them, too." For a moment, there was silence, so deep it felt as though the earth itself was listening. Then, lightning split the sky in two. The heavens opened. A roar of thunder followed, shaking the ground. The clouds above swirled, dark and alive, spreading far beyond Emily's circle. And then it happened. Rain began to fall, not just on her, but on the entire village. Heavy, powerful, unstoppable. The fire hissed and died under the downpour. Smoke turned to steam. The people screamed in relief, dancing, weeping, and raising their hands to the heavens. Emily remained kneeling, soaked to the bone, her body trembling. But her heart felt lighter than it had in years. The rain had finally listened, not to her pain this time, but to her mercy. The fall of the rain bearer. As the last flames died, the villagers gathered around Emily. The chief reached out to her, his voice breaking. "You have saved us again." Emily tried to smile, but her strength was fading. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "The rain is free now. It belongs to everyone." Then her eyes fluttered shut, and she collapsed into the wet earth. The villagers cried out, lifting her gently. They carried her beneath the downpour, calling her name over and over. The rain kept falling, soft, endless, cleansing. And as the dawn began to break, a ray of light pierced the clouds, shining directly upon her still body. To the people of Ndlovu, it was clear. Emily had become one with the rain. Emotional focus, mercy triumphing over pain, forgiveness that saves not only others, but also the one who gives it. Emily's final act of compassion turns her curse into a blessing for all. Dawn came quietly to Ndlovu. After the storm's fury, the world seemed reborn. The air cool, the earth soft, the scent of wet soil sweet as new life. The fire was gone. The smoke had lifted. And for the first time in years, the land was green again. Birds sang from the acacia trees. Tiny streams trickled through the once-cracked fields. The villagers stepped out of their huts in silence, their faces filled with awe. The rain still fell, soft and gentle, washing away the ashes of the night before. Children laughed and splashed in puddles, their feet sinking into rich, dark soil. The elders, who had not seen such beauty in decades, fell to their knees, murmuring prayers of gratitude. But amid the joy, a heavy sadness hung in the air, for Emily's hut was still. The village gathers. They found her lying where she had fallen, her face peaceful, her hands resting on her heart. The rain kissed her skin, glistening like tears. She looked asleep, as if she might wake any moment and smile. The chief, trembling, knelt beside her. His voice broke as he said, "She gave us the rain and took our pain with her." The villagers gathered in silence, the sound of the falling rain their only song. Mothers wept. Men lowered their heads. Even the children, too young to understand death, felt the heaviness of that morning. They lifted Amelie's body gently, carrying her through the heart of the village she once saved. Every step they took, the rain followed, soft and endless, as if refusing to let her go. The elders' words. Under the old baobab tree, the same place where the elders once judged her, they laid her to rest. The same elder who had once warned the village now stood before the people, his voice steady but filled with grief. "The ancestors have spoken," he said. "This child, whom we called cursed, carried the mercy we could not find in ourselves. The heavens did not punish us, our own hearts did. But through her forgiveness, the drought has ended." He looked up at the clouds and continued softly. "Amelie's heart has become rain. She will never leave us." The people bowed their heads. Some whispered prayers. Others simply stood, letting the rain hide their tears. The gift of rain. Days passed, and the rain continued, but now it fell evenly across the land. The fields came alive again. Maize sprouted, rivers filled, and cattle grew strong. The villagers rebuilt what was lost, but they never rebuilt Amelie's hut. Instead, they left the ground untouched, marked only by a small wooden carving. Amelie, the one who forgave. In every season, when the first storm returned, the people gathered at that spot. They sang songs of rain and mercy, telling their children the story of the orphan who turned her pain into a prayer that saved them all. Amelie's sky. One quiet evening, long after the years had passed, the chief's daughter stood beneath the same sky, watching a rainbow stretch over the plains. She whispered, "Thank you, Amelie." Above, the clouds parted, and sunlight poured through, warm, golden, gentle. And for a moment, it seemed as though the rain shimmered in reply. The story of Amelie, the orphan who cursed the heavens and taught a village to love again, lived on for generations. Her rain became more than water. It was a reminder. A voice from the sky whispering that even pain can bloom into something sacred when met with forgiveness. The elders of Ndlovu would tell the children, "The heavens echo the heart. When we curse in anger, the sky grows silent. But when we forgive in love, even the clouds learn to weep." And so, every drop of rain that touched the soil carried her spirit, gentle, pure, eternal. The villagers no longer feared the storm. They welcomed it, for they knew that each storm carried a story, and each rainbow carried her peace. Amelie's legacy became the heart of Ndlovu, a truth that no drought could erase. Bitterness is a drought of the soul, but forgiveness is rain. As the sun rose one quiet morning, the village children danced barefoot in the puddles, their laughter rising to the heavens. And somewhere beyond the clouds, the rain fell softly, as if the sky itself was smiling.